So as you guys know from the landing page of this webinar and from the slide that you're seeing on your screen right now, in this webinar, we are going to be taking a look at how you can use FAQ chatbots to increase your lead conversion rate on your marketing campaigns. Now, this is, as I was mentioning before to the people who were on the webinar a little bit early, we noticed that this CRO hack is one that not many bot creators are using in their conversational flows. Some are, but it works wonders in terms of helping you, as you'll find out through the session, it works wonders in helping you actually increase your conversion rate. So we thought it would be worthwhile to have this session so that you guys could learn about how you can deploy this into your chatbots to improve the conversion rates that you are seeing. Now, as always, we like to begin our sessions with an intro, just so that the newer attendees, I know a lot of you guys have attended previous webinars before and are regular users of the builder, but just so that new attendees, new people who just signed up for the TARS builder know who we are and where our expertise comes from. So to begin with, TARS as a company has been in the conversational marketing space for about what is it now, 5 years. We've been around since 2015. We're getting a question right now asking how long the webinar will be. It's usually around an hour, so it's not too long. So we've been around since 2015. We've been helping businesses boost their conversion rate using chatbots. A lot of you guys will already know this because you guys are users. And in that time, we and I personally have gained a lot of experience doing this. I'm a conversational designer at TARS and a marketer, so I help build chatbots. And I also help create content like this to help other creators build their own chatbots. I have about 4 years of chatbot creation experience, and we have, in that time, I've created a little over 100 chatbots. So it's really the experience of creating those chatbots and helping businesses increase their conversion rate over the last 5 years that is going into the making of this webinar. So I'm not just some disembodied head on your screen right now telling you what you should do in your marketing campaigns. This is rooted in the successes and failures that we've had with our clients over the last 5 years. This hack especially, because it's one that we've used and it's worked wonders for us. So with that, we're actually ready to start off with the important stuff, which is discussing FAQ chatbots. To begin with, we need to get a basic definition out of the way. What is an FAQ chatbot? And as the name suggests, an FAQ chatbot is basically a chatbot which answers frequently asked questions that your prospects might have when they land on your webpage, be that a landing page or a website. So prospect lands on your page, they have a question, just like with the regular FAQ section. They can go to that FAQ section to have that question answered if it is one of those those frequently asked questions, which a lot of people ask. It's pretty self-explanatory. There are two ways you can go about implementing these bots into your marketing campaigns. The first version is one where you have lead gen plus FAQ in the same bot. So a lot of people use this in the context of conversational landing pages. So someone clicks on your Google ad, they drop into a conversational landing page where the bot can capture their lead. But before they actually start the lead generation process, as you can see over here on the right, you give the user an option to ask a question. And usually that question is an FAQ. You give them options. As you'll see when we do the live build at the end of this webinar, once they click on that button, they will have the option to get an FAQ answer. The second version of this is a standalone FAQ bot, and that's generally used in the context of websites only. You can use the first version in a website as well as a widget, but the second version, you can't really use it as a conversational landing page because someone clicks on your Google ad, they land into a bot which just answers FAQs. That defeats the whole purpose of running a Google ad. You want to generate leads. So in that context, you need to use version 1. This is just a difference in case you guys are interested in deploying the bots to different places with different purposes. Now, the natural next question is, how do FAQ chatbots increase conversion rate? So when we created this webinar topic, a couple of people asked me, they were a little confused about the causality between answering FAQs and increasing conversion rates. And a lot of people actually know this already. Some of you might know this already, but we're gonna detail it. We're gonna flesh it out a little bit for everyone who doesn't know. And so that this is a good resource when we send out the recording after the webinar for people who aren't aware. And the argument for how FAQ bots increase conversion rate can really be split into two parts. The first, it has to do with the importance of FAQs themselves. So whether that's an FAQ that you have on a regular page or an FAQ that you have in a chatbot. And the second has to do with why the chatbot version of those FAQs is actually better than the regular web page version of those FAQs. So the first part, the importance of the FAQs, is something that you have to think about in terms of user journeys. So think about, again, the context of someone clicking on your Google ad. So you put a bid in on a key term that relates to your business. Someone clicks on your Google ad. They drop in on your landing page, and they have a basic doubt that's preventing them from converting into a lead or booking a sales call or just hitting buy on your product if you have an e-commerce site. Now, if you are able to clarify that doubt that they have, there's a good chance that they will convert, because now they don't have anything blocking their way to converting, and that reduces the friction in the conversion process. Now, it's key to note that most people who land on a page will have some form of basic query. Even if that query is unfounded, people tend to be apprehensive before they share their email or they share their credit card details to make a purchase. So addressing those queries isn't the sort of niche thing that you have to do to convert a certain section of your leads. It actually affects a larger section of the people who land on your pages than you expect. This is why on most traditional landing pages, which don't do an effective job at addressing these FAQs, it's part of the reason why they have such low conversion rates. And it's also part of the reason why chatbots, which don't have FAQ sections in them, especially in some industries, have lower conversion rates than ones which might have FAQ sections in them. So that's why FAQs are important, essentially. People land on your page, they have a very basic query about your product, about your company that's preventing them from converting. And your FAQs are going to be a tool that you can use to address those queries and reduce the obstacles in between that prospect, in between that prospect and conversion. So that's why you need FAQs on your page in whatever form. Now, the next part of this argument has to do with the advantages of chatbots for FAQs. So the natural next question is, okay, we need FAQs because they address, they're an efficient way of addressing these basic queries that people have. But why do we want to use a chatbot instead of a regular page with text on it? And as always, with most of these webinars where we talk about the advantages of chatbots, it all really boils down to engagement. Regular FAQ pages, if you've ever seen them, are pretty boring. They are just walls of text that prospects have to read through to get the answers that they desire. We're getting a couple of questions about the length of the webinar. I understand that this is long for some of you guys, but that's what we are doing today. We might try experiment with shorter webinars in the future, but today it is going to be an hour long. Now, the advantages of an FAQ chatbot, as I was saying, are that they're more engaging than regular FAQ pages. People don't like reading through a wall of text. Because it's 2020, they have better things to do. They want to scroll through Instagram. They want to scroll through Facebook. They want to read the walls of text that people post on LinkedIn these days. So they don't want to read through that page. Usually when people land on an FAQ page, they quickly glance over it and then they immediately drop off or go back to the previous page they were on, and that query isn't getting answered. So essentially the lack of engagement of regular FAQ pages is preventing you from seeing those benefits that we were talking about earlier with FAQs. FAQs should be addressing those basic queries that people have, but when people aren't reading your FAQ pages, then they're not functioning in that way. So the end result is that you're not actually addressing those regular queries that people have. and you're not actually getting them any closer to conversion. And actually over here, you can see a difference between a regular FAQ page and a chatbot to understand what this difference looks like in practice. On the left side, as you can see on this law firm's landing page, the FAQ section of the page is, again, as I said on the previous slide, just a wall of text. You have to scroll through all of these text blocks, read through each of them to understand understand the information that the company wants to convey to you, and get your query resolved. Whereas in the chatbot version of the page, in the conversational landing page version of the page, you click on the I have a question button, and then it gives you the FAQs as buttons, so you can select which one you want answered, because obviously in most cases people don't need to read every single FAQ before they convert. They usually have 1 or 2 questions at most. So there's no sense in really showing them the entire wall of text. So just to recap really quick, because the next section of this webinar is the live build where we actually create one of these chatbots. The purpose of an FAQ page, an FAQ chatbot in particular, is to create an engaging way to address the common queries that your prospects have when they land on your website or landing page. I see that we are getting quite a few questions right now on the webinar. We do appreciate this, but we're actually going to save the questions till the end of the session, just so that we can get through the live build as quickly as possible and give people who don't have questions the opportunity to leave a little bit earlier. So with that, we're actually ready to move on to the live build section of the chatbot. So we're close to answering the questions. Now, all of those benefits that I was just talking about with FAQ chatbots, they're great, but it all boils down to implementation. Like with any piece of technology, if you implement it badly, if you implement an FAQ chatbot badly, it's not going to address those queries that your prospects have, and it's not going to bring them any closer to your to conversion. So now we are going to actually start our live build. I'm going to close out of my slides over here. And give you a brief introduction on the page that we are working with. I had a couple of slides of this open, but we find that legal is one vertical where FAQ chatbots really work. So we're going to use that as an example in today's session. This is a landing page that I found through a Google ad for workers' compensation attorneys. Generally speaking, when people land on law firm landing pages, they do have a lot of doubts in their mind because most people haven't really gone through a legal process before. So the idea of hiring a lawyer to get workers' compensation, for example, can be daunting, and it usually causes some amount of uncertainty that the law firm has to address before those people will convert. That's why most law firms have these ugly looking live chat widgets in the bottom right corner of their screen. It's because of those doubts that people have. So what we're going to try to do is essentially automate that entire process of addressing those queries from a landing page like this, using a chatbot. Now, I highly recommend that before you actually start building your FAQ chatbot, you compile your FAQs into a handy Google Doc that you can easily port over into your chatbot. Now, the best way of identifying these FAQs is if you have an existing landing page or an existing website, just look at that for inspiration. So over here on the front page itself, they have a couple of FAQs answered. What kinds of, they said, now you may wonder, what kinds of workers' compensation benefits can I receive? When will I receive my benefits? And I did a little bit of digging on this website. I'm not sure why they split it up into 2 parts. They also do have an FAQ section over here called Information Center, which is what I showed you earlier in the slides, where they have a whole bunch of other questions over here. Now, we're not going to answer all of these questions in the chatbot that we are creating today. If you do have these many FAQs, you can by all means do it. The methods that we teach you today will teach you how you can implement as many questions as you're seeing over here into a chatbot. Since this is an example, we're going to focus on five or so questions. But I will say, when you are preparing your FAQs, try to be as selective as possible. Generally speaking, you want it to be as easy as possible for people to get their FAQs answered. And if you do have a long list of FAQs, in your chatbot, that's going to reduce the likelihood of them getting that FAQ answered, because they have to scroll through the list of FAQs to figure out which one applies to them. Now, we found in our experience that in most cases, a handful of FAQs, around 5, will usually account for anywhere between 40 to 70% of all queries. So you really want to address those 5, and that's gonna make a huge dent in the sorts of queries that your prospects have, and it's going to translate into a considerable increase in your conversion rate. We are going to show you in the build section how you can address queries that don't fall into those 5. So how you can have a fallback where you collect other questions that people might have to answer them at a later date over email or over phone. So to begin with, again, recap real quick, look at your regular landing page, see what sorts of FAQs you already have, compile them into a doc like I have done over here. If you do not know what FAQs you have, think about the questions that people ask you on sales calls. Think about the questions that people send into your emails. That is going to be a good judge of what FAQs you actually have. And you should put into this FAQ doc that you compile before building your chatbot. Also, it's worth noting that you can experiment with these. So if you create a preliminary list, like I've done over here, and you implement it into a chatbot, and you find that people aren't really asking one of the FAQs in particular, you can remove that. If you see that people are asking you using the fallback or sending you over email other FAQs that are recurring, you can add those in, just like we are going to show you over here. So once you have this doc ready, you can go ahead to the TARS builder. We're going to be using TARS, obviously, to create our chatbot today. Go over to the TARS website, that's hellotars.com. Sign up for an account if you haven't already done so. Over here, I am going to create an account using one of my work emails that was created expressly for this webinar. So Arnav, FAQ webinar at hellotars.com. Oh, sorry, put that in the wrong field. So Arnav Patel, just some basic details over here. Things that we need to help give you the best service possible. That's why we ask for your phone number, just so that we can get in touch with you in case there is an issue with your account or there's an issue with your chatbot that you need help resolving. That's the primary reason that we need it. So once you hit create an account, it's going to drop you into the TARS dashboard where you can start building. Now, by default, it is going to drop you into the chatbot templates section of the builder. The chatbot templates section is essentially a gallery of chatbots that we have created that you can use for inspiration. They're broken down by industry and by use case. And the purpose of them is so that you can use them for inspiration, and you can actually use them as a starting point for your chatbot creation. So if you hit use template over here, it's going to create a duplicate of this chatbot in your account, which you can then change to meet your company specifications. In this webinar, though, I'm going to teach you how to create a chatbot from scratch. Just so that you guys understand, the newer users over here understand the basic mechanics of the builder and can take those skills to creating whatever chatbot they want to. So to do that, as you might have just seen, you click on the TARS button at the top of the screen, or you click on the My Chatbots button on the left side of the screen, and they'll drop you into the My Chatbot section of the builder, where you can see an overview of all the chatbots that you've ever created. Now, since this is a new account, we don't have any chatbots ready in the My Chatbot section. So we're going to go ahead and create a new chatbot by hitting the blue Create a Chatbot button, typing out FAQ chatbots, and hitting Create from, or FAQ chatbot, and hitting Create from scratch. Once the bot is created, it's going to initialize your creation workspace where you actually define the guts of your chatbot conversation. So this is where you're going to define the actual conversational logic. This is where you're going to check the data. You're going to define how your chatbot looks, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the first thing that we want to do, as with all chatbots, is to create a Gambit. Now, the older users over here know exactly what this is, but essentially a Gambit is a single back and forth between your prospect and your bot. So up here, you can define the message bubbles that the prospect sends to the chatbot sends to the prospect. And over here, you can define how the prospect can respond. So whether that's buttons or text input, or even if they want to send an image or a file. We have a whole bunch of options here that you should totally explore. Now, in this case, if you remember from my slides over here, what we are going to do is we're going to create a version 1 chatbot because this is more versatile. You can use it in a conversational landing page, and you can also use it in a regular chatbot widget on your website. So a version 1 chatbot captures leads as well as answering. It captures leads and it answers FAQs. So now in most lead gen chatbots, especially if it's a conversational landing page, the first gambit that we always try to use is a hook gambit. So I'm going to rename this hook over here, and we're going to give the chatbot a three message series to hook the prospect in, grab their attention, and get them to start the lead generation process or ask a question. The first message that we always send is a welcome message. So over here, we're going to say, welcome to, what's the name of this law firm again? The Law Offices of Larry H. Parker. The Law Offices of Larry H. Parker. So we'd like to welcome them to the conversational landing page or to the chatbot, just so that they know where they're at, just to add a little bit of branding, create some brand recall, add some legitimacy to the page, especially if this is a conversational landing page. If it's super generic, then they're going to drop because they're going to think it's spam. The second message that you always want to send is a hook message. And a hook message essentially grabs their attention, tells them what value you offer them. You can also think about this as a value proposition message. And a good way to figure out what your hook message should be or what your value proposition message should be is to go to your regular landing page and look at the first H1 or H2 tag. It should have a catchy line that you can convert into a value proposition message. So over here, they have a line over here that says, injured on the job, we'll fight for workers' rights. You fight for the workers' compensation benefits that you deserve. Now that is a pretty concise way of putting the value proposition of this law firm in the context of workers' compensation law, which is the landing page that we are using for reference. So we're going to use that. We're just going to copy that and paste it into our chatbot over here as the value proposition message. Now, after the value proposition message is complete, what you want to do is give the prospects an opportunity to actually generate a lead or ask a question. So what we're going to do over here is we want to make it as easy as possible for them to continue the conversation. So we're going to actually turn this from text input, where they can type out whatever they want, to button input. And the first button that we want to put, since this is a version 1 bot where we have lead gen and FAQs, is we want to give them a opportunity to generate a lead. So get a free consultation. And then in the second button that we create, we are going to give them the opportunity to ask a question or get an FAQ resolved. So that's where the FAQ chatbot part of this comes into play. So we're going to say, I have a question over here. And then to introduce these two buttons, we can give a message. We can call this the CTA message. You can think of it as the CTA message because it essentially functions as a CTA. And what you can essentially do over here is give them a prompt to press one of these buttons. So the primary button over here is the get free consultation because you want to generate a lead. So we're going to say, if you have a couple of minutes today, minutes to spare, I can get you a free consultation with one of our lawyers. Now, essentially how the chatbot is going to work, if I hit save, publish, and open up the bot in a new tab, it is going to say, welcome to the offices of Larry H. Parker. Injured on the job, we'll help you find the workers' compensation benefits that you deserve. If you have a couple of minutes to spare, I can get you a free consultation with one of our lawyers. And it says you can skip this by clicking on the skip button. We don't want this to be an optional. Input, so we're actually going to jump back in here and turn optional input off at the top. I will say, after reading the messaging over here, I don't like this rhetorical question, so I'm actually going to remove that. If you're using this as a conversational landing page in the context of a Google ad, for example, you don't really need to specify something like injured on the job, because usually someone who lands in this page is going to look up something like workers' compensation attorney. So they've clearly been injured on the job. They already know. That you don't need to re-specify for them. So I don't really have an issue removing that over there. Now, once we've created this hook, we can hit the save button. At the end of the webinar, we'll get back to making this look a little bit better. We might add a logo. We might change the coloring of it so that it matches this branding. But for now, we're going to leave it at that and continue with the lead generation flow. Since this is a FAQ chatbots webinar, I'm going to speed through the lead generation flow real quick. Part of the reason I actually chose a legal landing page is because they always have really short lead generation flows. So over here, we can see that their existing "do you have a case" form has 4 fields over here. I'm going to drop the email field. I'm just going to ask for name, phone number, because we need a contact detail to get in touch with the lead and tell us about your case. So the first thing that we're going to do is ask them for their name. We want to first acknowledge their input, as always. If you've watched any of our previous webinars, you'll know this. They've just pressed a button that you've asked them to press. So you want to acknowledge the fact that they did that before you ask them the next question. Otherwise, it's going to feel like an interrogation. It's going to feel like the conversation is super artificial and no one's going to actually convert. So acknowledge their input. It makes the conversation feel more human and translates into a better conversion rate. If you hit the button, we're going to say great and then proceed to the next question. I need a few details to get you set up. First, an easy one. What's your full name? We can make full name bold just to emphasize the detail that we are asking for over here. And then we can put full name verification on down here. Now, once they've shared their name with us, we create another Gambit, connect it up over here, acknowledge their input again. And usually when someone shares their name with you, and you're meeting them for the first time, you might say, nice to meet you, especially in a customer service context. Nice to meet you, and then pull their name. So URSP.name in double curly brackets. This is essentially telling the bot to pull the user response from the Gambit, whose Gambit name is name in this case. Or we can maybe change this to full name. So now the Gambit name is full name. So when we're doing the data reference over here, we want the user response, URSP, from the Gambit that is called full name. And we put that into curly braces just to tell the bot that that's what we're doing over there, a data reference. Now, if someone comes onto the page and they say, my name is John, or they say John Smith, it's going to say, nice to meet you, John Smith. Now, after we've acknowledged their input, we can ask them the next question. In this case, we usually like to ask for the tell us about your case option first. Our legal clients have found that if you ask for a contact detail too early on in the conversation, people think that you're just trying to get their number so you can spam them with texts. They think it's too salesy. So you want to ask what's important to the prospect first. So we're going to ask about the tell us about your case option. So over here, we can say, tell me a little bit about your case. We want to leave it as custom input because we want them to be able to type whatever they want in the text input config. And we're going to change the name of this Gambit to case info. Finally, we are going to add another Gambit for the contact details, and we'll be done with the lead generation flow, and we can get to the important stuff. So contact details. You'll see why I needed this lead gen flow in just a bit, because it slots in really well with the FAQ section. But the contact details, we can say something like, got it. I think we have enough to work with. So I think we have enough to work with the case info that you just gave. Share your contact details with us, and I'll pass this along to our lawyer who will get in touch with you. Have enough info to work with. Share your phone number below, and one of our lawyers will get in touch shortly. if you see me adjusting the green bubbles over here, these are message delays. So it tells the bot how long it should show the typing animation before sending the message to the right. So over here, 2.0 means it's going to show the typing animation for 2 seconds, you know, the ones that you see in Facebook Messenger or in iMessage or in WhatsApp, and then send the message on the right. Over here, we are going to put phone number verification on. So we can put mobile verification, hit save, and then close out this lead generation flow. So we can say something like, thanks. Whenever they share their contact details with you, just say thanks, because it is a big step to share contact details, especially in the age of robocalling and spam email. So we can call this end convo. Thanks. Look out for our call. We will get you the compensation that you deserve. And now we can end the conversation by changing this Gambit to auto page redirection. With that, we have finished the lead generation part of this bot. We can take a look at it real quick, hit the publish button, go back here. It's going to say, welcome to the offices of Larry H. Parker. We fight for workers' compensation benefits that you deserve. If you have a couple of minutes to spare, I can get you a free consultation with one of our lawyers. And now we have two options. In the get a free consultation option, it's going to give the prospect an opportunity. It's going to ask for a couple of details, and it's going to create a case for the law firm to follow up on. I'm going to give it a random string. I have enough to work with the ASD, and then I can share my phone number. So the one that I typed in before. And that's the lead generation flow. Now we can move on to the important stuff for this webinar, the FAQs. So the way this bot works, think about it as a conversational landing page. Someone looks up workers' compensation attorney. They see a link to the law offices of Larry H. Parker as one of the ads at the top. They click on that link and they land on this conversational landing page. Now, some of them are going to hit the get a free consultation option, and they're going to generate a lead. But a lot of the people who land on the page are going to have a basic query. They're going to be apprehensive because it's the first time that they're hiring a law firm. People don't generally have too many legal cases in their lives. And they're apprehensive about it. They want that apprehension to be assuaged. They want those nagging queries that they have to be addressed. And in most cases, those nagging queries are really basic things that the law firm gets often. How much will I have to pay? Am I going to have to, let's see what else we have here. How much do I have to pay? Should I see a doctor? Things that are really basic that the law firm can respond to off the bat, because they know that a lot of people ask this stuff. Now, for those people, imagine if this I have a question wasn't there. They have no recourse. They're just going to see the get a free consultation. They're going to feel scared. They're going to feel that apprehension, and they're going to drop because it doesn't get addressed in any way. So that's why we've added this I have a question option. I realized that now that I have put two us over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back into the builder, actually close the tab over there, remove the second It's always important to edit your chatbot flows for errors like that. And now we can start building out the FAQ flow of this bot. Now, the way that I usually like to go about doing this is, first of all, create another Gambit, like I've done over here, position it up well, connect it to the I have a question button of your first Gambit over here. So I've connected this I have a question button to GID 6 over here. So now if they click I have a question, it's going to go in this direction of the conversation instead of the lead generation flow. Jump in over here. We can call this FAQ options. And then we can say something like, sure, what can I help you with? What can I help you with? Now, in the response for these questions, I'm actually going to do something that might seem a little weird to you, but bear with me because it is it's going to help you in the long run by reducing the number of Gambits that you have to create. So I'm going to make this a no input Gambit. That means once the bot says, what can I help you with? It's not going to give the user any input to respond with. So it's going to say, what can I do to help you? And then the user will see no input response. They have no way of clicking the FAQs. We're going to fix that in just a minute. I'm actually going to change this from FAQ intro. So we're introducing the FAQs over here. We're giving them a couple of messages to introduce the actual FAQs that they can get answered. Now I'm going to create a second Gambit over here. And I'm going to jump into this Gambit and I'm going to delete all of the messages that are there. I'm going to select buttons from the fixed options. And then I'm going to use these buttons to respond to the FAQs, or to identify what FAQs the users can have answered. So I'm going to jump back to my handy doc over here and copy all of these FAQs that I've compiled into the bot. Just take all of those questions and dump them into the buttons that we have over here. So we're addressing 4 FAQs. I think I mentioned 5 earlier, but we're just going to do 4. This is perfectly extensible. So if you have 6 or 7, you can use the exact same technique. Now this Gambit we're going to call FAQ options, because this is where you have the options of the FAQs that people can get responses to, and hit save. Now what we want to do is connect the intro to the options part of the FAQs. So that means first the prospects are going to land here. They're going to click the I have a question button. The bot is going to say, sure, what can I help you with? It's not going to give them any input response, and it's going to move automatically to the next Gambit, where it's not going to send them any messages, but it's going to show them the response. So the end result is it basically looks like you had all of those responses, all of these button responses in the original Gambit. So imagine if those buttons were over here. That's essentially what it's going to look like to the user. And I'll show you in just a minute why it's important that we do this. I'm going to hit the Publish Chatbot button just to show you guys what this looks like. We will fight for the workers' compensation benefits that you deserve. I have a question. It's going to show you that, sure, FAQ intro options, what can I help you with? And then it's going to show you the buttons. So for all intents and purposes, even though we've split it into 2 Gambits over here, it basically functions like if it was a single Gambit, like if we had the button options over here. Now, once you have these button options complete, what you want to do is you want to create a Gambit for each one of the FAQs that you have. So we have 4 FAQs that are being responded to over here. So we're going to create a Gambit for each one of those. So 4 Gambits, going to line them up real nice. Yep. And we're going to connect them up. So each of these FAQ buttons connects to a different Gambit because each of them has a different response. Now we're going to go through and take the answers that we have over here and populate them into the Gambits that we've created. So the first question is, should I see a doctor? There are 3 different lines over here. I generally make a different line for a different message. So the first message is going to be absolutely. The second message is going to be, if you're in pain, go see a doctor. And the third message is going to be the one that you see over here. But we're actually also going to throw this message over here. So it's going to be a 4 message. It's going to be a 4 message Gambit. And I'll show you why we need this 4th message right now. So copy this answer, add it to your clipboard, highlight it, hit copy, jump back to your builder. So make sure that you're in the right Gambit. So this first button is, should I see a doctor? And that connects to this Gambit over here. We can rename the Gambit to doctor. And we can paste our answer to the question in the message bubbles over here. Now, when you take the entire message flow under each question, so all 4 lines over here, and paste it into your builder, it's going to come up as a giant block of text, which looks not too different from the blocks of text that we see over here. So what we want to do is we want to make this a little more manageable for the user. We want to split it up into bite-sized chunks that they can read really quickly. So what we're going to do is split it up. So absolutely. So what are the lines over here in our doc? Absolutely, if you are in pain, the law offices, and get a free case review. So jump back in here, cut out the rest of the message. If you are in pain, and then Basically, we're just going to split up this message into the different lines that we have in our Google Doc. We want to adjust the message delays as well, just to give people the opportunity to read the messages. So we say absolutely. It shows the typing animation for 2 seconds, so they have time to read the absolutely, and then it sends this message. While they're reading that message, it's going to show the typing animation for 3 seconds. Hi, sorry, we had a little bit of a technical glitch. I am going to get that sorted in just a second. Okay, so we are back up and running. So where was I? Got a little thrown off by that technical glitch. Over here, we are basically responding to the question that the prospect has with the messages that we created in the doc. Now we can go ahead and do that for all of the questions that we have over here. So hit save. Go to the next option over here. Make sure it connects to the right Gambit. So how much does it cost to hire you? That's the one that we just copied, right? How much does it cost to hire you? Jump in here. And actually, now that I think about it, you know what we're going to do? We're actually going to delete these other 3 Gambits, and I'm going to show you why. Because this is going to make your life a lot easier. Stick with the first Gambit, the first question that we just created, and finish that out completely with the user response. So now they've had their FAQ answered over here. So it's going to say, absolutely, if you're in pain, go see a doctor without exception. The law offices of Larry H. Parker can help you find an expert doctor who will not charge you upfront for their services. And now we want to give them an opportunity to continue the conversation. We don't want to give them an open text field because that's going to be confusing. They're not going to know what to type in next. So what we generally do, as you might have seen from our slides, as you might have seen from the beginning of this conversation, is we give them 2 options. So over here, the reason I have added this last message over here, the get a free case review to get more info message as the last message in all our FAQs over here, is because we can now use the FAQs as a way to funnel people back into the lead generation flow. And this is how you're translating all of those customers who have those basic queries into leads. So once they have their FAQ answered, you want to give them an option to easily jump back into the lead generation flow. So they've basically landed on the page, they have this basic query, they get it responded, they get it answered by the FAQ section of your chatbot, and now you want to funnel them back into the lead generation flow so that you can convert that previously unsure prospect into a converted lead. So the first option we're going to give them over here is the get a free case review option, because that's what we wrote in the message. So get a free case review. And the second option that we are going to give them is I have another question, because a lot of the times people will have multiple questions that they need answered. They have multiple FAQs that they need answered. So that's where we're going to add this I have another question option over here. Now with that, how this flow is going to work is someone lands on the lands on the chatbot. They click I have a question. We show them what questions they have. So we give them an intro. We say, sure, what can I help you with? Don't show them any input. It skips to the next Gambit where we don't show them any messages and we show them these buttons. So as I showed you over here, it's seamless. It sends them the messages, shows them the buttons. Say they click on should I see a doctor? So they click on this first FAQ. It drops them over here where it sends them the messages that responds to their question. And it gives them these options to continue. They can either jump back into the lead generation flow or they can ask another question. Now, once they click on the get a free case review option, you want to connect them back in with the lead generation flow. So take that socket in the Gambit. So this is the get a free case review, and connect it back up over here where your lead generation flow begins. So now people who get their FAQ answered and they click get a free case review will be dropped directly into the lead generation flow, as if they'd clicked it over here in the first Gambit. The people who say, I have another question, you want to prime them for that question. So over here, it says, sure, what can I help you with? It's going to sound super generic, if you say the exact same thing again, because they just heard that and it's going to make it sound super artificial. So to add a little bit of a personal touch, what I do is I create another intro. So we're going to call this FAQ intro 2. And we're going to change the messaging a little bit so that it seems a little bit more natural. So we can say, not a problem. What else do you need help with? So over here, the what else indicates that they've already asked one question and we're answering a second question now. So that adds a little bit of a custom touch. It makes it feel a little bit more human, a little bit more responsive to their responses. So over here, once they click, I have another question, the chatbot is going to say, not a problem. What else do you need help with? And just as we did with this initial FAQ intro over here, we're going to add no input as the config and then drop them back into that same set of options that we can respond to. So the FAQs that they can choose from again. Now, this is actually why I split the intro and the FAQ options into two, because otherwise, if we had not done this, what we would have had to do is, let me actually show you for the sake of demonstration. If we just had this FAQ options over here and we had these messages, sure, what can I help you with? In these FAQ options, sure, what can I help you with? Then when the prospect drops in here, we send them the messages, we show them the options. It looks the same as it does over here. But then once they click, I have another question, we can't drop them back in here. What we need to do is we need to recreate this entire gambit over here, change the messaging over here. And then that becomes a hassle because you need to make all of these connections that you're making here between the FAQ options and the actual FAQ answers again. So you're gonna have to make all of those connections again, which is a hassle. That's why instead what I like to do is I like to split the FAQ options and the FAQ intro into two. So we're going to delete these messages over here, bring the FAQ intro back into the picture. Actually, I don't know why I disconnected that, and get it back to the way it was before. So now that we have this set up, the reason I deleted all of the other FAQ gambits that I created is because now that we have these buttons ready over here, all we need to do is duplicate these. This gambit over here for the doctor FAQ to create all of the other FAQ gambits with the buttons ready for connection. So over here, I'm going to duplicate it. How many FAQs did we have again? We had 1, 2, 3, 4 FAQs. I'm going to duplicate it 3 times. So make 2 duplicates and then 3 duplicates over here. I'm going to go into each one of these and change them so that they match up to the other FAQs. So the second one is how much does it cost to hire you? I'll connect this up to the second gambit. Rename this cost. Go back into our doc, get the cost messages over here. Paste them in here and remove all of the medicine messages that we had, the doctor messages that we had. I'm also going to split the messages up as we did before into the different lines. So in simple English, that means you don't pay it unless we win. Get a free case review for more info. Adjust the message delays and hit save. Then, since the buttons have been duplicated, so that's why we deleted all the messages and duplicated from this first one, we can connect them up again. So connect the get a free case review option to the lead gen flow and connect the I have another question option to FAQ intro 2. Now again, we're going to do the same thing for the next question. So benefits, we can call this benefits. Jump back in here. This is a super short gambit. It's just 2 questions. Paste the responses over here, delete all of the old messages that we have from the doctor answer, and split the message up into these separate lines that you have. So hit save, and then connect it up, of course. You can't forget to do that, otherwise the FAQ does not get responded to. And then finally, we have the fourth FAQ. So why should I choose Larry H. Parker? This is kind of an FAQ that we just throw into as an excuse to show off. So someone sees, why should I choose Larry H. Parker? They might click on it out of curiosity, and then that gives you an opportunity to essentially show off about your company a little bit. So why Larry H? Delete all the messages that we have over here from the doctor FAQ. And then add a message bubble. Add a message bubble for the messages that we have in our doc for this question. So here. And then, of course, connect them up. And with that, we actually have a complete FAQ bot ready. So now when prospects land on the page, they are going to have the option to ask a question. So I have a question. It's going to show them what those questions are. And once they have those questions answered, once they click on a question, they have it answered, they are going to be given the option to jump into the lead generation flow if they feel like their queries have been resolved, or ask another question if they feel that their queries have not been resolved. Now, I did say earlier that one thing that I did want to add to this flow was the fallback option. So what if a prospect lands here and they don't see their question over here? So what we're going to do is we're going to throw in a fifth option that says, I have another question. And what we're going to do from this socket over here is create another Gambit where we connect this last option that we created. I have a question to this new Gambit that we created. So we can call this other questions. And then we can say something like, actually, this is a good opportunity to, again, funnel people back into the main lead generation flow. So if they have another question, we can tell them that their best bet is probably to get a free case review because they can get on the phone with a lawyer who will be able to answer any questions that they have. So again, over here, we can say, not a problem. I recommend that you sign up for a free case review because so that you can ask one of our top lawyers about any other queries that you have. And then we can like make sure that they understand that it's free. It really is free. So even if you get the review done and don't use our services, review done to resolve your questions, and you don't use our services, we won't mind. And then we can throw in a smiley face. And then we want to give them an option to jump into the lead generation flow. So what we're essentially saying over here is, in this context, if they have a question that doesn't exist in the FAQs, what we want to do is tell them to get a free case review, because if they get a free case review, they can talk to a lawyer and get those questions resolved. So over here, we're going to jump in and say, get a free case review, get a free case review, and connect that to the lead generation flow. Now you have a fallback option. So if people don't have a niche question that doesn't fall into these commonly asked questions over here, they get funneled back into the lead generation flow where they can get where they feel like they can get their queries resolved further along in the funnel. And that helps you get more people in through the door. It helps you get more people into your funnel. And that makes it easier. It obviously makes it easier to work with them than if they just drop from your page without sharing any details with you. So with that, we actually have the entire FAQ flow complete. We can hit publish over here and see what it looks like in practice. The prospect lands on the page. It says, welcome to the law offices of Larry H. Parker. We'll fight for the workers' compensation benefits that you deserve. If you have a couple of minutes to spare, I can get you a free consultation with one of our lawyers. Now over here, if they click I have a question, it's going to say sure. What can I help you with? And then show them the options. Let's say, how much does it cost to hire you? It's going to give the response that we defined over here. So we run on a contingency basis. In simple English, this means that you don't pay unless we win. Get a free case review to get more info. We said 2 gets over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this to 4 more info. Again, the importance of copy editing your bot flows. You find all the places where it sounds awkward. Reading it out loud like I just did is a great way to do that. Jump in here, 4 more info, and hit publish. If they have another question, they hit I have another question, not a problem. What else do you need help with? And then it shows them the options over here. If they don't see their question over here, they can click I have another question. It says not a problem. I recommend that you sign up for a free case review so that you can ask one of our top lawyers about any other queries that you have. It really is free. So even if you get the review done, it should be, to resolve your questions and don't use our services, we won't mind. So get a review done. And with that, the entire flow is complete. The only thing that's left to do now is to deploy this onto your Google Ads campaigns or deploy it as a widget onto your websites. And of course, before you do that, if you guys have the time, what I might do is jump into the design section and actually make this look a little better and match the branding of the company. So I'm going to pull out my handy color picker tool over here. To figure out what their brand colors are. So I'm going to use this yellow because that seems to be the main color that they have. And I'm going to make that the bot message bubble colors because it represents the bot, or it represents the company, the chatbot. And then I'm going to jump back in here and then I'm going to choose whatever they use for their CTA. So over here, it seems like their CTAs are blue. The form is blue, the button is blue. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to jump back in here and change the message bubbles to blue. I always like to change the page background to white. I just prefer it to gray. It makes it feel a little more seamless, and hit save. I'm also going to do something that we've never done on these webinars before, and I'm going to see if it works while I'm doing a screen recording, but I always like to throw in the logo of the company in the first Gambit, so in the hook. As you can see, the colors of the message bubbles have changed to add a little bit of branding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my screen clipper to take their branding over here. Now you can save this to your drive. So I might open up Paint, crop it, save as, go to downloads. And call this Larry H. I think I might have already saved it for a previous iteration of this bot I made in practice. So those are the images that you were seeing over there. If we jump back in here, we can go to the hook, add an image, and upload the logo. Now, I know I've said this 3 times already, but now we have complete chatbot. We have the branding, we have the FAQs, we have the lead gen flow. So that's pretty much it in terms of the live build. Now, I know a lot of you guys had questions, as I can see from the many questions that we have in our Q&A section, or actually they seem to be the same question repeated over and over again. So will we be sending out a recording of this webinar? We absolutely will. Actually, before we get into these questions, you know what I'm going to do? For the people who don't have the time to stay on for more Q&As, who don't have any questions about what I just showed you guys, if you want to get in touch with us, and you have any questions after the fact, if you have other appointments to get to, you can reach out to us on any of the following channels. So call us on this number, contact me at arnav@hellotars.com, go to our website and sign up for our builder. If you sign up for our builder, we have an intercom widget where you can ask us questions. So for the people who For the people who need to get going, contact us through those means if you have any additional questions about this, and we'll be more than happy to answer. And for the people who do have the time, I will stay on for a little bit and answer your questions. So the first question that we had was, will there be a recording of this webinar? There absolutely will. It takes us a couple of days to get the webinar recording prepped, just because of the way Zoom works. So expect it by either Thursday or Friday. Keep an eye out on your inbox for that. We also send it on our newsletter. So if you haven't already signed up for that, you should go ahead and do that. If you go to our website, there will be a pop-up that lets you sign up. What other questions do we have? Is there a website that shows the TARS bot in action? Oh, this is a good question. There might actually be a way to operationalize that. I'm just going to look into this. I'm going to look into this while I answer some of the other questions. But yes, there is a way to do that. Let me see what other questions we had. I know we had a question dropped into the chat. Has the TARS FAQ bot, does the TARS FAQ bot have, is it NLP capable? The FAQ bots that we create on TARS are NLP capable through the API integration feature. And what that means is if you jump into the builder over here, if you jump into the builder and you select API config from the top in one of your Gambits, you can hook up this Gambit to whatever NLP engine you're using. So if you use Dialogflow, or if you use WIT, I don't know if WIT is still a thing even, but if you use Dialogflow or something similar, you can send the message bubbles, the user input that users send to you, to your Dialogflow response, to your Dialogflow setup, and that will send a response back to your chatbot with the specifics of what the user is saying. And then you, based on that response, you can respond to the user in different ways. So you can do that. I highly recommend that if you want to do something that advanced, you reach out to us through the builder on Intercom, and we might be able to help you out. That being said, I do recommend that you, in our experience, when we have implemented something like that in our chatbots, it hasn't worked out too well, because inevitably the NLP engines just aren't there yet. So inevitably what happens is people will ask questions that the bot does not know how to respond to. And that usually results in frustration on both the part of the marketer and the part of the prospect. So over here, we have another question about that. If I wanted to answer questions, but the questions are written down, not clicked on. Does the chatbot understand natural language? Again, that comes back to what I was just saying about using Dialogflow. If you want to, you can implement. You can implement a. Just a second. If you want to, you can implement a API integration with Dialogflow so that you can answer questions that are written in natural language. But in our experience, that has not tended to work particularly well. Yeah, that's just our experience with it, but you absolutely can do that. If I wanted to answer this question, but the question is not written down. Okay. In my business, potential leads are very nervous, much more than the lawyer, in sharing their personal details and situation for why they're contacting us. They feel much better when they speak to us, but we want to get them to call and not lose the lead. What do you suggest to alleviate their fears with a chatbot? And they feel much better when they speak with us. I don't know if you're still on the call, Darren, but I need a little bit of a clarification of this question. I don't fully understand. So if the prospects land on the, let me try to respond to it to the best of my ability based on what I understood from your question. So the prospects who land on your page would rather talk to you guys than, they feel much better when they talk to you guys. And they have trouble sharing their personal details, and how you would want to address that, how you'd want to like get them to share their details using a chatbot, given that you can't talk to each and every one of them who lands on your page. Correct. Okay. So the idea behind a chatbot, that's actually the sort of crux of why chatbots are, that's actually the crux of why chatbots are useful in in a context of answering FAQs. Basically, by turning the FAQ answering process from a impersonal looking FAQ page into a conversation, you give the prospect a sense that there is someone or something on the other side who's responding to their questions, even if that is a completely artificial chatbot. So if you haven't already experimented with it, I would suggest that you try to experiment with a chatbot just to see if that works. Because I think just the fact that the chatbot is framing the entire interaction as a conversation instead of this impersonal looking FAQ page, which could make the experience a little more scary, might help alleviate those fears in your prospects. That's what we found with some of our, again, as I mentioned, legal clients. So we have we had a legal client rather who used our chatbots to generate leads and respond to FAQs. And what they found was that when they used a regular FAQ page or they used a regular form to capture leads versus a chatbot, people were less likely to convert. And when they looked into it, it turned out that people were more trusting of the chatbot because it felt like a conversation. And just because it looked like a conversation. So if you haven't already experimented with doing it, just try using the chatbot. It should alleviate the fears that you're talking about, just because it is framed as a conversation. I'm pitching a digital magazine locally. One of my ideas is to add a personality test / daily horoscope function. Have you created any bot like this? I don't know the specifics, but I'm pretty sure that we have. You might want to either reach out to us, as I keep mentioning. You might want to reach out to us on. The intercom widget in the builder, and someone should be able to help you out with that. We have definitely created quiz chatbots before. In fact, we had a quiz chatbot webinar. And actually, this question is from Desi, who's on the quiz chatbot webinar. So, so you can probably implement something like that. We also might have a chatbot template that addresses this. I might go and check to see right now if we have that. So I'm going to jump into the chatbot templates section of this builder. And down here, if we scroll through, there should be a section for quizzes, if I'm not mistaken. And if not, I might create a ticket with the team that handles the chatbot templates to get that implemented. So let's go to the website and see if it's there in the on-site templates gallery. Chatbot templates. Over here, use cases. Yep, we have a quiz maker. There we go. So we do have some quizzes over here that you can probably use as a template. But again, highly recommend that you reach out to us. We should be able to help you with that. Another question that we have over here is, can you integrate a chatbot, a quiz chatbot with a CRM? How can this be integrated to a CRM? So actually our previous webinar, the one we hosted right before this, had to do with Zapier integration. So we do have an inbuilt Zapier integration. I might actually run through that real quick. If you go into our admin dashboard, let me jump back into the chatbot over here. So FAQ chatbot. All the data that the chatbot collects, all of the information that the chatbot collects can be seen in the check data section of the builder. So on the left side of the screen, by default, you're in the build chatbot section. If you click on check data, you have several options to view the data that you're collecting. So one is to view each of the individual conversation reports. You also get emails of this, so you can monitor how your chatbot is performing. You can analyze the data using top-level statistics, so bot conversions, bot conversations, conversion rate, et cetera, and you can see how those statistics are performing over time as you start to collect more leads. And of course, you can export it as a CSV. But getting back to your question about how to integrate the chatbot with a CRM, if you click on the integration section over here, by default, we're building out more integrations as we speak. But for right now, we have a Zapier integration, which allows you to send data automatically from your Taurus chatbot to the hundreds of other apps that are available on Zapier. So over here, if I click Get Started, it's going to take me. Sorry, we had a bit of a technical glitch on my end. For some reason, we had a bit of a power surge, but that's pretty much it from our webinar. We will be sure to share the. We'll be sure to share the recording with you guys. And if you have any questions that you need responded to, I highly suggest that you again sign up for our builder and reach out to us through the intercom widget. We should be able to help you resolve your queries over there. Thank you guys for signing up for this webinar. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm just going to pull up the Contact Us slide for you guys to take a look at before we drop off this call over here. So reach out to us through any of these channels or reach out to us through the builder, through the intercom widget, and we will be able to answer any other questions that you have. Apologies for that. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty over here. Thank you, guys.